It sucks. Sometimes it sucks, but it's the wrong question. Hey, listener, welcome to episode number 102 of Listen Up. So, this beautiful month of April, I am focused on one intention, and that is the intention of asking. Now, if you haven't chosen your theme for April, or if this is the first time that you've ever heard my podcast, welcome. I choose a theme every month that keeps me in alignment and working towards my big goals of the year. So I encourage you to go back and listen to last week's episode where we did the Live with Intention framework. I teach you how to do that and how to choose your own theme for the month. And then you could, of course, always adopt the Listen Up collective theme and work with me throughout the month in nurturing that theme. So this month we are nurturing the intention of asking. And today I want to talk to you about asking from a very specific lens. And that is, what are the questions that you are asking that are quietly working against you? These are questions that feel productive because they consume a lot of energy and thinking energy. And when we are in thinking energy, we feel productive, but they actually don't help you move the needle forward. These are questions that are not serving you. And I have identified 3 of those questions in particular, the questions that I have seen my students asking and questions that I have asked that I realize are unproductive questions. And when you decide to redirect and ask better questions, you are going to see a huge difference in your life. So I am going to invite you to listen for these 3 questions and then ask yourself, have I been asking this question? Think about that and make an intention to redirect your question, rethink this question, and see how it starts to change the game for you. Okay, so the very first question that I often hear people saying, and I have experienced myself, is the why me question. Why me? Now, this question shows up in 2 different ways. One is when you are asking about something that has happened to you that you have interpreted as negative, and you are asking, why did this happen to you? Maybe it's an illness or a diagnosis. Like, why me? Like, why did this happen to me? It may be something that happened to your child or to your parent. Like, why my mom? Why did she have to die so young? Or why did my kid go through this problem? Like, why me? We ask this question because we feel like sometimes life can be grossly unfair. And we sometimes don't see a correlation between our actions and the challenge that life has thrown at us. It's like, I didn't do anything to deserve this. I didn't earn this. Why is this happening to me? That is one way that we ask that question. The second version is less talked about, but is just as real. And that is when you are experiencing what is known as survivor's guilt, meaning, why didn't that happen to me? I've seen this often. I know a friend of mine was in a car accident with 3 of his best friends. There were 4 boys in the car and 3 of them died, and he's the only one that survived. And for a long time, he asked that question, like, why me? Why was I the one that survived? If I hadn't been sleeping in the backseat of the car, I would have died too. If I had just decided to drive, maybe we wouldn't have had this car accident, right? He spent a lot of time in that energy. That's the question that, if I confess, I've asked too. In my case in particular, my mom has kids from different marriages. So my brother and my sister had a different dad than I did. They shared a dad, and then I had a different dad. And I always felt that I got so lucky because I had this amazing dad. And my brother and sister didn't have that relationship with their dad. They didn't get the benefit of my dad. And for many years, I asked the question, why me? Like, there's 3 siblings. Why did one get the better dad? You know, why? Why didn't my brother and sister get my dad? And it can feel really bad to be the lucky one in this scenario because you love the people that are experiencing the thing you're not experiencing, right? In my friend's case, those are his best friends. And he had to see all of their families, their parents, their lives fall apart. And his was fine. And he felt like unlucky to be the lucky one because he was the one that had to see all this pain and suffering. For me, I felt that way sometimes too. I love my brother and my sister and I want them to have the best life ever. And sometimes I think, why was I the lucky one and got the, better dad? It sucks. Sometimes it sucks, but it's the wrong question. Neither why me, why did this happen to me, or why not me help us move the needle. They don't help us become more productive. They don't change our circumstances. What they do is that they keep us in circling energy. They keep us waiting for an answer that we're never going to get. And they are disempowering questions because we show up as victims of our circumstances. I didn't do anything to earn or deserve the dad I got. I didn't do anything to earn or deserve the diagnosis I got, or the problem I'm in, or the challenge I am facing or experiencing. And because I did not participate, I don't deserve this. That's the energy of the question. And it does not support you. So how do you translate that into a better question so that you are asking a question that does serve you and does move you forward? And I invite you to consider replacing why me with what is my responsibility here? With privilege comes deep responsibility. With the privilege that I had, having the father that I had, I have the responsibility of being the best sister I can be to my brother and my sister, loving them, showing up for them, teaching them what I learned from my dad. And I have other responsibilities as well, but as it relates to that, what is your responsibility here? If you are experiencing pain, then the question becomes, what is the lesson here? What am I meant to learn? If this is happening for me, then what can I do about it? What can I learn from it? How can I use this to move forward? That is also a responsibility question. In both cases, you are moving from what is beyond your control to what is within your control. You are going from victim of your circumstances to an active participant in creating your own reality. My friend who lost his friends in the car has used that privilege of being alive to be an incredible father, an incredible friend. He named his children after those best friends of his. He has maintained a beautiful, deep relationship with the families of those who passed. He keeps their memory alive. He honors them by being a good person. He has taken responsibility for the privilege of staying here now that they have left. The second question that I see ruminating amongst lots of my students and the people around me, and it is a killer, is what is my purpose? There's a wonderful book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. It's probably one of the best-selling books of all time because it addresses that one question. What's my purpose? What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? It is the most asked question on the planet, and it causes so much pain, especially when you cannot figure out for the life of you what your purpose is. I see people that feel like they have no purpose drifting in their lives with distraction. I feel them feeling lost. I feel them going through life without direction. And they sit around and they are as consumed by thinking energy as the why me people. They are constantly thinking like, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? They're living all of this life, but they have no idea what their purpose is. I want to invite you to reframe that question today. And I want to ask you this question. What if your purpose is simply for your soul to have a human experience? Hey, so I'm going to interrupt the episode for just a minute to ask you this question. Do you feel like you're the one that has to keep all of the puzzle pieces in order in your life and home with you and your family? Maybe you are juggling all the pieces, you're checking all the boxes, but something in your life doesn't feel complete. Maybe it feels off, like you can't see the bigger picture, or you're not aligning the pieces correctly, and you're not really sure why. I invite you to my 45-minute life audit call. This is a clarity call where you and I are going to work together to look at all the pieces of your puzzle and see where you actually are, where you want to go, and what shifts you may need to make in your life to get there. So if you are ready to take that kind of look at your life, then I invite you to go to the link in the show notes and book a slot. I'm hosting these calls from April 7th to the 17th. So make sure that you grab a spot before they run out. And let's take a look at your life puzzle together. Back to the episode. Think about the miracle of the fact that you were born. How many things had to go exactly the way that they went for you to exist? How many sperm did you beat in the race to your mother's egg to be born? Think about the miracle of your existence and the chances of your birth actually coming to fruition. What if that is not an accident? It is a miracle. And what if, as long as you're still here, your purpose is to still be here? I want you to think about that. We don't have control over how long we spend on this planet. We don't have control over when we live or when we die, our age or circumstances, the way we die. Those things are not part of our control. What if the question is not, what is my purpose? But the thought is, if I am here, then I am here on purpose. And then the question becomes, what can I do purposefully? You see, you were given this body to inhabit in this earth. You were given other humans to interact with, and you were given emotions to experience. You were given all of these things. So what if the question is, how do I protect the body I was given? How do I show up in the relationships that I am exposed to and optimize those relationships? How do I experience my emotions instead of running from them, so that I can learn to navigate them, so I can learn to conquer them, so I can understand them? What if the interests, talents, and characteristics I was given were part of this game that I'm playing, and I get to use those on purpose? Because interestingly, we all are given different talents and interests and characteristics. So what if we looked at this as just this game of surprises and miracles and gifts? And our job is to play the game well, do our best, be of service, love a lot, find our way through the hard into the bliss. If every day you woke up in your life and you said, how can I be the most purposeful parent, the most purposeful spouse, the most purposeful entrepreneur, the most purposeful soul, spirit, human, what would it change in your life? Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. It takes you out of thinking energy and into proactive energy. It gives you something to work with, something tangible that you can actually do every day. Because whether it's just being kind to someone on the street, saying hi to your neighbor, mowing the lawn, making your bed, going to work, writing content, having a phone call with a client, exercising, praying, everything in your life merits purpose. The third question, and this is the last one, it's not a specific question. This one's going to require you to think a little bit more. It's the question that keeps coming up, that you keep hitting your head against the wall with, and yet you can't find an answer to. For me, I know exactly what that question is. Every year, one of the rituals that I practice is that I choose what's in for the year and what's out for the year, right? Like, what do I want to have in my year? What do I want to release this year? And in 2026, I had one out for the year. And that was to stop asking the question, how? How do I do this? How? I am often paralyzed by the thought, I don't know how to do this. So the original thought is, I don't know how to do this, which leads to the question, prompts the question, how do I do this? And that, for me, keeps me in thinking energy. It paralyzes me. It works against me. It's the reason it took me 4 years to start this podcast. It's the reason it took me 5 years to really launch my business. When I transitioned from being a lawyer to a life coach, it doesn't help me at all. Now, for you, that question may be something different. Maybe it's, what if this doesn't work? Maybe it's, what will people think? Maybe it's, is this even worth it? I don't know what the question is. Maybe it's one of the two that I mentioned at the beginning. Why me, or what's my purpose? There's always a question that we ruminate on over and over and over again. And we keep coming up short. Like, we cannot figure out the answer to that question. You've asked it 100 times and you've never actually gotten an answer that helps you move forward. This is what I want you to do with that question. I want you to redirect. I want you to ask, instead of looking harder for a better answer, I want you to ask a different question. So every time that question pops up in your head, you have to intentionally redirect the question. So how I have been doing this since January of this year, when I chose this word, is every time I think it, and I probably think it every day. Well, I don't know how to do that. But how do I blah, blah, blah. I think immediately, what do I know right now? My friend Bruce Turkel, when I was starting the idea of this podcast, of launching this podcast, he gave me a piece of homework. And my response to him was, I don't know how to do that. How do I do that? And his response to me was, if you knew how to do it, what would you do? And that question bothered me like you would not believe. It's like, if I knew what to do, I wouldn't be telling you I don't know how to do it. Obviously, right? Like, no shit, Sherlock. And he was pretty adamant about his question. He's like, just think about it. If you knew how to do it, what would you do? So I did think about that. And although that question, it still didn't feel like the right question, I came up with a variation of that question, which is one that served me better. And it was, if I knew how to do it, what would my results look like? Who would I be? How would I speak? What would things look like? And if I could kind of see that version of myself, maybe I can work backwards. Just work backwards. I have another student of mine who said he had a deep conversation with somebody who's very successful. And he was asking him some questions. And he said, no, you're looking at this all wrong. Think about your day. What does your dream day look like? Think about it. Okay, now that you've thought about it, start doing that. Figure out every single day how you get closer to that version of yourself. You're going to have to release some things, eliminate some things, delegate some things, rearrange some things. Just do more of what that desire looks like. Don't lose the vision. You'll figure it out. Okay, maybe that's something I can try. So I started thinking, if I already knew how to do this, who would be on my team? What would my life look like? What would my results be? Who do I know that has already figured this out? And what do I know right now? What do I know right now? Even if it just gets me 1 inch closer to my goal. And then here's the thought that changed the game for me. For a long time, I felt that if I knew how to do it, I wouldn't make a mistake. I'd do it right. And if I could do it right, I could save myself a lot of heartache and I could just do it once and do it well and move forward. And then I redirected my thought to, what if not knowing how to do it is a gift? You see, sometimes the most successful people that I know have said things to me like, well, everybody says that you're supposed to do it this way, but I didn't know that. So since I didn't know that, I did it this way. And actually this way got me better results. But if I had done things the way I was supposed to do them, I would never be where I am right now. If I'd followed the rules, I probably wouldn't be as successful. And then I started learning about what it's called to have a beginner's mind and how dangerous it can be to have an expert's mind, because an expert doesn't have any more curiosity. An expert isn't looking for more possibilities. An expert starts to get stuck in fixed mindset. A beginner is scrappy. A beginner is full of potential and possibility. A beginner is full of curiosity. A beginner has to find his way towards success with new creative opportunities. So now, instead of saying like, I don't know how, therefore I can't do it, I started thinking, maybe I'm lucky that I don't know how to do that. I'll do it my own way. Maybe I'll figure it out. Maybe this beginner's mind is a gift. What if I were more curious? What if I were more scrappy? What if I dared more? What if not knowing how isn't that bad? That has changed the game. So, in your life, are you looking harder for the right answers? Or is there an opportunity to start asking different questions and see what happens? Okay, so those are the 3 questions. I hope that they have sparked a lot of reflection in your mind and that you are going to really start to audit your questions. And speaking of Ask April, one of the things that I do in my work is that I periodically open my calendar for what's called a life audit. And this life audit is meant to help you identify the questions that are working against you, the pieces of the puzzle that are making you feel stuck, that are keeping you in an open loop, and that are creating noise and not letting you move the needle. So if this is something that you would like to explore, like, are you asking the right questions? What questions would serve you better? Are you looking at your life puzzle, figuring out where you actually are as opposed to where you want to be, where you want to go, and what are the shifts necessary to move the needle in that direction? I encourage you to sign up for a complimentary life audit. It is 45 minutes with me. It is absolutely free. And you are going to walk away from this audit looking at life a little differently. This is going to be a clarity call. It's going to be a supportive call. You are going to get tons of value from the questions I ask of you and the questions I invite you to ask of yourself. The link is in the show notes. I encourage you to book it fast. There are limited spots just because the calls run from April 7th to April 17th. So they're actually already running as we speak right now. And they're getting filled up. So act quickly. If you do not find a time on the calendar to book a call with me, and it is urging you, like you really feel like you could use this life audit, email my team, admin@carolinedeposada.com, and tell them that you really need to find a time to work with me. And I will do my very best to accommodate you and get you into the calendar. I am committed to doing as many of these calls as possible in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going all in on this. So take advantage of this time. Okay. We are going to figure out the questions that are hurting you and the ones that are worth keeping on that call. So that's all I've got for you today. I'm just going to close with this quote that I don't know exactly where it came from, but it has resonated with me so much. The wisest person isn't the one who has the better answers. It's the one who asks the better questions. So that shift is where everything changes. Bye for now. I'll see you next week. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for being here. I am deeply, deeply grateful to connect. If you're loving this podcast, I'd love if you'd follow, rate, or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help us so, so much. And if you know of someone who could really use a voice like mine in their head, please share this episode with them. Now, if you're feeling called to keep the conversation going, come join us inside the Listen Up community on Facebook. It is a free space to reflect and root into intention together. You can find the link in the show notes or just search Listen Up with Caroline de Posada on Facebook. I'd love to welcome you in. Until next time, take care and keep noticing the sparks of bliss in your life.